Thanks for joining me on my little walk down memory lane with an old favorite. So back in the day, and for many of you, way back in the day, between 1985 and say 92, 93, this was one of my very frequent modes of concealed carry. I used to alternate between the Smith & Wesson Model 645, which I have shared with you, in an identical but black leather rig, and this one, which is the Smith & Wesson Model 639. The difference is, this one's a little bit smaller. It's a 9mm. Oddly enough, it has the same capacity, because back in those days, nobody could count higher than 8. But this gun, just a tiny bit lighter, and more importantly, just a little bit smaller, and it was easier to carry in warmer weather with just either a very light jacket or even sometimes just a baggy shirt. Luckily for me at that time, that sort of oversized Hawaiian shirt was really the fashion of the day. So that kind of fit pretty good with this type of carry. And one of the reasons I got away from this type of carry was I just, adopted newer technology as far as the firearms I was carrying, but also because fashions changed and you were looking pretty conspicuous if you were walking around in a big puffy shirt on a July day. But there's the carry method right there. Smith & Wesson Model 639. There is a round in the chamber. There is 8 rounds in the magazine, so it is carried 8+1. Safety is on. On this side, 2 magazines, both loaded with 8 rounds. So you have your reload right there, easy to grab when you need it. It was also nice because the 2 loaded magazines on the opposite side helped to counterbalance the gun, not completely, but it helped, and so it made it a much more comfortable carry. Shoulder holsters are still viable today for carry, and I'm surprised, quite honestly, especially in cooler weather when cover garments are the order of the day. I'm surprised this isn't a more considered option for carry. I haven't fired this gun in, I know it's been years. I don't know how many years, probably not that many, but I'll bet it's been 5 or more since the last time I fired this gun. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting acquainted with this old friend. Now I will say one caveat and make one excuse before I even start. This rear sight has always been a problem, like almost since the gun was brand new, and I did buy this gun brand new. The rear sight tends to walk side to side. It's loose in the dovetail. I've tried to shim it, so hopefully it's a little tighter, but we shall see. All right, here we go. First time in a long time. Smith & Wesson Model 639. I forgot how short the reset is on this thing. I mean, it's like nothing. It almost feels like a malfunction, it's so short. And speaking of malfunctions, all right, cleared that one. Let's keep going. Nice. Mags drop, nice and free. Stainless steel gun with stainless steel magazines. They can gall and they can sometimes bind a little bit. These, I've never had that problem. All right, let's see if I can get the hostage taker. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're letting him get away, aren't we? Well, that won't do. Oh, no wonder. Rear sight is already walking. And that would explain why the hostage taker is laughing at us down there. Really got to fix this one of these days. I don't know if I need to have it staked or what. No. That white flapper is small enough that your sight doesn't have to be off by much to make you miss. So like I said, the Model 639, and the 6 in front of the 39 designates stainless steel. There are a number of variations in the Model 39, but the Model 639 is really built like a tank. I mean, it is back when a stainless steel handgun was like, you know, chiseled out of a giant block of stainless steel. There's a lot to love about this gun, and for me there's a lot of sentimental stuff to love about it. I've had it ever since it was brand new. I had an FFL and at the time, and I ordered this gun directly from a distributor, and it was shipped directly to me, so it never even was in a gun store. It was never handled by anybody else from the time it left the factory until I got it. Which actually kind of leads me to one of the things that there is to not love about it quite so much, and that is this was 1985, and this was back when the American manufacturing companies, and pretty much all of them, weren't doing a great job, and they, just like the big three automakers in Detroit, their attitude was sort of, you'll buy what we give you and you'll like it. And it was really no different in the gun industry at that particular time. And there's a lot of things on this gun that I would not accept today as a customer. But back then, you pretty much, you didn't really have a lot of choice, because if you complained, you were going to be ignored. But there's some really bad, let me get the light right so we can see it here. There's some really bad chattering marks, tool marks on the slide. So you've got this blemish, this tool mark that's pretty ugly, right above the Smith & Wesson roll mark on the polished side of the slide, and yet they didn't think that was important to remove that, or fix that. So that kind of, to me, that is representative of that era of American manufacturing. And again, I think almost every American manufacturer was guilty of that type of attitude back in those days. And of course it has some wear marks, got a lot of holstering and unholstering wear, which is just good wear that I've put on it myself. One of the other things I don't like about this gun, which again is representative of that period in time from Smith & Wesson, is this. Magazine disconnect safety. I hate that. I hated it then, and I hate it now. So you can remove that mechanically. You can disable that, but I don't shoot this gun enough for that to really be an issue or something I want to disable. Plus, I'm afraid I'd lose the parts or something. And if I ever did pass this gun on, which eventually I will to someone, I want it to be intact. And that kind of takes me to another point, and that is talking a little bit about some of the changes that I've made. And I say but I didn't really do it, other than this grip. You see, this got this Packmeyer grip on. Well, I did that right away. So this grip is as old as this pistol. In fact, I'm one of those weirdos who still has the box that the rubber grip came in. You can see here it was for the Smith & Wesson Model 39, which included the 439, 539, and 639. And inside this box are the original. Oh, this is actually an alternate back strap that came with this. I'm not sure. I guess you would have wedged it underneath. I don't think I've ever even tried it with that on. I don't know. So this is like back in the day before Talon grips. This was that was the alternative. But I don't think I ever tried that. But these are the original stocks right here. So these wood grip panels would be what would originally be on the pistol. And it is a nice look, of course. But for shooting, for practicality, I really like the feel of these rubber pack wire grips. But of course I do have the originals. That's what they look like. So that was my modification. Now, my dad was a gunsmith. He has since passed away, but my dad was a gunsmith, and I took this gun to him at one point, and I said, you know what I'd really like? A couple of things changed. I would really like an orange insert in the front sight. This orange insert was not factory. This is added in. My dad added that for me. And he also tried to help me with the rear sight. He did put some shim underneath it. Unfortunately, you can't really stake it. I know I mentioned that at the range, gee, maybe it needs to be staked. Problem is, to detail strip this gun, get the firing pin out and so forth, you have to remove the rear sight and remove some little plungers that are underneath it, which I think is a problematic design because it does force you to remove the rear sight from time to time, and that's just not a good thing. So he did try to fix that, and it took for a while, but then now it's back to walking again pretty regularly. The other thing I asked him to do, this gun originally had a lanyard ring that was part of the frame, and he removed that for me at my request. You can see where he cut it and he polished it square. He also polished out the magwell, gave it some really nice bevel that it didn't have. It was very, very square and very 90-degree angled. So my dad did that for me. He cut the lanyard ring off, polished it up, and gave me some nice bevel, nice polished, very highly polished bevel to the magwell. Makes magazine reloading a little bit easier. So those were changes made. So the orange insert is something that we did. The magwell polishing is something we did, and removal of the lanyard ring. So in every other way, it's original and intact as of, from the time I've owned it, which has been its entire life. So I have not tried to refinish it in any kind of way or do anything like that with it. But so it's because I think probably because this was one of my very first. In fact, this was the first centerfire semi-automatic handgun that I ever owned. So the only semi-automatic gun I owned before this was a .22. This was the first centerfire semi-auto that I ever bought. So it has some sentimental value there. It also has additional sentimental value because my dad, who's no longer with us, did some work on it for me and customized it a bit, so it means something in that respect. So this is a keeper. It'll never be sold, and it'll stay in the family. But there is a look at an oldie but a goodie. The Smith & Wesson Model 639, 9mm. This was top drawer, very top drawer stuff back in the day, 1985.
I remembered one of the other things about the shoulder holster was a bit of a downside, and that was it gets hot like a mofo underneath those straps if you're out on a hot day in the summer times. So I do know from experience that it's only going to be a matter of time before this sight gets looser and looser and walks before I've even shot a full magazine. This Smith & Wesson is a double action, single action. This is back in that Gen 2 era. It has a safety that is also a hammer drop. It was not called decocker at the time, it was called a hammer drop safety. Drops the hammer safely. The firing pin is blocked when that safety is down. and then that puts the gun into double action. So let's go ahead and take the first shot double action. Almost. Boy, the reset is so short. It's not very tactile. You don't feel it much, which almost makes you feel like the, like I say, like you got a dead trigger. But man, it is short. Very crisp and light too once it's in single action. The double action is a bit heavy and long, as was customary in those days, and kind of still is. The single stack magazines, as I said, hold 8 rounds. They look a lot like a 1911 magazine, but they're not quite. This gun has always performed very well, like I say, with the exception of the sight, with the exception of that rear sight that can't be counted on. It has always been a very good performer. I'm going to go back to double action for the first pull. Sight's walking. Luke Sightwalker. Gotta fix that. If only I knew a gunsmith somewhere. Talk a little bit more in a bit about this gun and gunsmithing, because it is not original in its current configuration. It has, as they say in Hollywood, had work done.